go out into the harvest and go knock on a door and share the good news of Jesus. Was that the church in Texas, in Dallas area?
Yeah.
Where Ross,
FBC
was that his
Allen,
name?
yeah, uh-huh.
First Baptist Church, Allen. He had a couple of guys that were trained and no place left, and they said, we want a meeting with you. Isn't this the way that it was?
So what happened is they started explaining like the 4 field stuff and all this kind of stuff, and this was a jaded, pastor. He was like, all right, I'll hear these guys out, but it seems like they're trying to push something. Whatever,
if I'm not mistaken, he was also the minister of missions. He was the outreach guy.
He was the outreach guy.
Yeah.
And so he was like, whatever. But what caught his ear is he got to talking and saying, he explained, we're trying to reach out to a apartment complex, right? And then it was a similar situation, Nicole, like you said, like they had all these plans, like, we'll do, block party, all this kind of stuff, servant kind of ministry kind of stuff. And the NBL guy was just like, well, you're trying to reach apartment complex? So what are you doing Wednesday? I don't know.
Which was like 2 days later.
Come on, let's go. And he's like, do what? It's like, just come and watch. You don't have to do anything. Just watch me, right? And then he started asking this pastor questions like, hey, how many hours a week do you work? How much time do you spend actually pursuing lostness?
There you go.
I was like, what? He's like, yeah, like out in the harvest. Like, how much time do you? He's like, I work like 45 hours a week. He's like, yeah, but people come here. If someone comes on campus, I'll talk to them. He's like, no, but how much time do you spend actually, on the harvest? And that just kind of convicted him. He's like, oh man. So he agreed to go with this guy and just started knocking on doors, offering prayer. He had a quick way to walk through the gospel, 3 circles, and he was just amazed to see just good conversations coming out of this. And so he started regularly going with this MPL guy, and then he realized, I need to expose the leaders of my church to this. And so they did a training with the leaders of the church, and that started turning things around. And then they started training church-wide, and now it's just like absolutely amazing. Like his testimony of like how it's just like absolutely turned around the church in ways that he didn't expect, like giving. Giving. He's like,
church got
giving
excited.
bumped up, and the people who flipped the church wasn't him. It was the people coming in from the harvest with stories, and they were sharing stories, and they were starting to just flip the church.
Well, the church had a lot of what you and I would call apes that were, frustrated. They wanted to share their gospel, and this was in what you and I would think would be a pretty heavily evangelized area. But Sunday school classes started taking grids each Sunday and praying over those. And the next week, the apes would come in and go door to door and start witnessing and doing no place left. And then the church, now, this is one of the things that you pointed out. It's not just church planting and not just making something, but being able to figure out how to mobilize those missionaries to work locally. But being able to make disciples is something that was physically growing the church, and not physically, numerically growing their church, to the point now they're at the point of church health, where they're looking at planting churches. I would love it if they could have had a testimony where immediately they sent 2 people into the harvest. In Cincinnati, what I'm telling our pastors is, all I want is 2 people out of your church. They will keep their membership. Did you already say this? I went to the restroom. They will keep their membership in your church. They will keep their tithe in your church. But they will go out in the harvest and be able to raise those up, and then they'll be able to leave and come back. I had the opportunity to serve as a consultant at Saddleback Church for a year. I worked with the Peace Plan. I don't know if you know kind of what they do. Well, anyway, one day they said, hey, Mark, come on, we want you to meet with this Sunday school guy that has started 10 Sunday school classes in the last 5 years. So we went to meet with him, and I was just riding shotgun with them, and they asked him to start a new church, and immediately he starts backpedaling, going, oh, I don't have a seminary degree, I don't have any money to build a building, I don't know that I could get a new church going. And they said, no, all we want you to do is win people to Jesus, and we want you to form a new small group. And then we're going to coach you to help have it take on characteristics of the church. And he goes, winning people to Jesus and forming a small group, I've already got 10 of those under my belt. Is that all I got to do? And he says, yeah. And he says, okay, now I got a question for you. And they go, sure, what? And he says, why can't they be a part of Saddleback? And he says, well, they can, but they don't speak English. They're Cambodians. And you're going to be doing all this through a translator. And he goes, gotcha. And that's all really they needed to say to the dude.
Yeah.
He was equipped. He knew how to win people to Jesus, and it was just a matter of setting the time to go in the harvest. My wife and I are so convicted about this methodology that we're setting aside 2 hours every night just intentionally to go into the harvest. And we have gone through all of our church prospects. We visited and connected with all of our neighbors. And now we're going into parts that we have no connections with. And it is fun. We did do some training when we did training at Cleft Pipe Baptist Church. We had 37 from our church that were trained. We went into this one neighborhood called Willowbrook, and we haven't gotten to red light, yellow light, green light, but if I could jump ahead real quick, we gauged their responsiveness. And so we've got several green lights that we've never followed up with since February. So those are the first ones we're going to go in the harvest. We have their addresses. We saw that they were open to either having a Bible study in their home or attending a Bible study at our church. So that's a testimony from a DOM.
All right, I think this is a good opportunity to actually do some training, because you guys have an opportunity to actually walk through this with pastors. So what I want you to do is get a battle buddy, partner up with someone else. So I think you guys two are here, two of you guys here, two groups here, maybe you guys in the back, one group or two groups, okay? And just walk through kind of what I explained in your own words, 3 touches of training and what the goal is to get out of it. So go ahead and just stumble through it and just explaining kind of what it looks like to get from 0, your first gospel conversation training, to 3 touches to get to a team, and how to get going. So go ahead.